Lions Rock Productions.
This is Popping the Bubbl with hosts Sandra Ponce de Leon and Pete A. Turner.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Streich. I'm the founder CEO of Podsource. I'm here with Pete and Sandra. You guys, you're listening to Popping the Bubbl.
All right. Awesome. Hey, Jeremy, it is so good to have you here. I don't know how long we've been talking for. It's probably going on a year. I've been watching your journey, building Podsource, podsource.org. And it's really exciting that we're finally have you here officially on our podcast. So why don't you tell the audience all about yourself? How did you start and embark on this journey?
Sure. First, I appreciate you guys having me here. It's surreal kind of listening to your show a year ago, and now I'm here.
Yeah.
With Podsource.
Wow.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So what did I do? So basically I moved out I'm from East Greenwich, Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
Small state in the country, had these ideas, after college, just came out and drove out to San Francisco.
Wow.
And decided, I wanted to do something entrepreneurial and had these kind of inklings of an idea, right? And then there was one day where I was just sitting at a coffee shop and, I was working away and deciding what I wanted to do with my life. And this woman, she's involved in education, and she was talking to me about getting deeper into evolutionary biology in elementary schools. And I was like, that's fascinating. I love that topic. And I said, I heard about a book on a podcast, and I really want to recommend it to you. And I couldn't remember the name of it. So, me being maybe a little bit crazy, I was just rifling through my notes because I was taking notes on podcasts.
That's right. Yeah, I found that interesting. So that's typically how you listen to podcasts, or back then you were listening and taking a bunch of notes.
Yeah, I was definitely taking notes on the ones that were more involved, and that I felt like you couldn't just really grasp it all in one bite. So eventually found the book Jared Diamond, The Third Chimpanzee, I think it's called, and I suggested it to her, and she was like very excited about it, and I said, "There's a business there," and here we are.
Right. So the business is what?
So it's podsource.org.
Yep.
Basically, it's evolved a little bit, as most startups do. So right now the tagline's search for sound. We've got a couple of voices for everyone. Really what we want to do is, open up the black box that's audio. We want to be able to search through any piece of audio that's on the internet, because there's so much information that's been locked away. When you type in on Google, for Break It Down show,
you get a lot of hits.
Yeah, you get a lot of hits. But really, nothing comes up.
It's true, because if you look at video on YouTube, video has transcription usually with it, but you're not going to find the same with podcasts.
No. And people are realizing that's changing. I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss, and there was a very recent email that he sent out about his movement to create transcripts for every single one of his 400 shows, and that's to benefit the deaf. And it makes so much sense, so that's something we've been looking into, is, trying to work with some hard of hearing organizations so that we can, kind of help that movement for good,
So your technology platform is really a search engine that is able to mine through all of this audio on hundreds of podcasts. And if I'm looking for information on AI, I can find it. If I'm looking for information on Africa, I can find it there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you hit it spot on there. If you have an interest, you want to seek it out, right? And you want something pushed to you as well. So there's a push-pull element to it.
Okay.
And that's why we're doing both. But at its core, you search, and the mentions, topics, names, if you like Winston Churchill, the best shows with Winston Churchill referenced would come up. And then at the same time, the AI algorithm that we have learns it learns about you, right? Just like YouTube has, and it learns your interests. And in that vein, we can push great content to you that's otherwise unreachable because you haven't been able to search for it and find it.
Yeah. So you mentioned AI. So there must be some pretty also heavy duty technology on the back end to be able to suss out all this audio and turn it into something that is searchable and keyword, find those keywords, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's definitely some technology involved, but so my partner in this, I'm extremely lucky to have met him. He's been in Amazon and Yahoo.
What's his name?
Vish Kumar.
Okay.
So Vish is a really bright guy, and he's great with strategy. He's deep in the programming universes. He's been able to kind of help us create this. We're calling it the pod pipeline. So we're able to do. So a creator inserts their show, their file, and then once it's inserted onto Podsource, you essentially don't have to do anything. You have transcripts, you have notes, you have syndication to all these different networks, and so it's truly like the one-stop shop for podcasts.
Amazing. Well, I mean, yeah, we need to get on this, right, Pete?
Absolutely.
You already are on it.
Oh, good. Oh,
nice.
Phew.
I didn't even know it.
I think that I did, but I didn't know about the manual step of us actually uploading to Podsource. Do we need to do that?
Pull RSS feeds then, or how do you gather all that stuff?
So we actually generate our own RSS feed. That's the initial way. So for someone who's not affiliated with us, right? Like, Joe Rogan or someone huge like that. They have a public RSS feeds, like you're saying. So we're just able to suck those in and take all the metadata and, just kind of twist the information around to come out in a very aesthetically pleasant way.
Very cool. I kind of, I find your background really fascinating because you pretty much just went from college student to entrepreneur. You came out west in search of the Silicon Valley dream, and here you are, a founder. Like what is it in your background or your upbringing you think that made you think that you could do this? Because you have to be, like you said, you have to be a little bit crazy to be an entrepreneur. So what is it about your background that drives you to do this?
Ego? No, but I mean, first of all, I appreciate that, the kind words. I don't really think of it that way, but I mean, I guess it's true. But really the way I like to think of it is, when you look at the whole grand scheme of it, yeah, it seems kind of crazy, but all it is just, one step at a time, right? So I said, I want to drive here one day, and you stay over that place. And then I want to drive to Austin the next day, and I want to drive to, Santa Fe the next day, right? So when you think of it that way, driving from Austin to Santa Fe, it's not that difficult. It's just one day. So if you take it in the baby steps, then you can really get to big places. And, that's how we're building this company. It's not just one thing overnight. It's really chiseling, and eventually we'll get there to something that's, really great.
Yeah. And have you gotten any funding along the journey?
So we've gotten initial seed funding, but it's still been it's mostly self-backed. So we're fundraising right now. We're doing a bridge round, and it's something that it's really fun, but it's also really taxing and not the greatest thing, because just personally, I don't like asking others for money, so it doesn't feel great. But it's a necessary thing that you have to do. And if anyone's out there who's interested in the media space, you can think of it like this. This search engine for audio, it's going to happen.
It hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened.
How is that possible with Alexa and all of these new voice AI engines that are out?
I don't know. I mean, it's something that you think would be logical.
Yeah.
It is weird because with all the podcasts that I put out, every single one goes out on my YouTube channel, and so it has a transcription automatically. But I will purposely, because I'm trying to get better at SEO, right? And I'll purposely type in words in sequence that are in the show, and Nick's Nine Frankenstein, it's not there. And I'm like, but I know it's there. I have the most current interview with this person, the newest, bestest thing, and you cannot find it because it's audio only. It's crazy.
Right.
YouTube will do a transcription live across and closed captioning. I tried that.
It doesn't search transcriptions?
It probably does, but it does not pull it to the front. Like, it must be that audio only is de-incentivized in terms of the hit. It must be.
Do you think it's something with privacy, maybe? You know, every person would have to accept that it's going to be searched?
No, because they automatically transcribe it.
I think anything that you put out on the web is, Yeah,
it's free domain.
Exactly.
Don't think that it's occurred to someone over at Google.
I think probably eventually they'll have sort of how you have the search, and you can do search for photos and search for video. Maybe eventually they'll have search for audio. So hopefully your technology will be developed enough that they can just buy you and leverage your tech and have that be for
company. I would love
search
that.
for audio. Yeah. So what's your pitch to invest? If you were to meet an investor right now, how do you pitch them? Let's hear it.
Hey, I'm Jeremy. I've been running this company, for a year. We've built up an email list, over 15,000 people that are interested in Podsource. What we're able to do is search through all the audio on the internet. Eventually we'll be able to search through all the videos on the internet and all the movies. Anything that's quotable that has words. The technology is there. And for someone to monetize that could be an extraordinarily lucrative avenue.
Okay, I'm sold.
Give me your money.
All right, here's $10.
Seed round complete.
But yeah, I mean, you talked about funding, some of the challenges there, and prior to getting on air, we were talking about blockchain, and is that a potential avenue of funding that you're looking at? Maybe doing an ICO or an STO for your technology?
So Vish and I talked about ICO a little bit, and we were treading lightly. We're bullish on blockchain in general. The technology is going to be a part of the system. It's I read, I think in The Economist, they were likening AI to the discovery of electricity, right? The first thing was just it lit up a light bulb, or it flashed a key, so it says. So it was electricity was the light bulb, right? But then what did electricity do? It created cars, it created steam engines and all these different things that are integrated into our lives, right? So we're thinking that blockchain maybe is not like electricity, but maybe it's like an extension cord. Extremely, extremely necessary, though you might not think of it, and something that rides underneath the sexy topics in the world.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those sexy topics. What are the sexy topics you're into right now?
Well, I mean, so before this we were talking about Bill Tai. So I saw him speak last week, and afterwards we were talking about his company, BitFury, and one of his a side project was it's the Blue Lagoon project. So plug for Bill here.
We love Bill.
Yeah,
he's amazing.
And Brooke Shields.
Brooke Shields.
She was
dating
in Blue
yourself,
Lagoon.
Pete.
It doesn't matter if I'm dating myself. Brooke Shields was in Blue Lagoon.
Okay. So what he wants to do is, in Iceland and like Russia and a lot of those cold weather countries, they're using mining equipment to heat their homes, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
And I love that, save the world. So what Bill and a couple of his colleagues, their ideas to build an artificial blue lagoon in Iceland. So they would pave out the land, and beneath this glass is going to be just a mining factory. It's just all rigs underneath there, but above it is like glass. So it looks like a blue lagoon, but it's just for mining.
And it'll be heated from the mining equipment, so it'll be like a hot springs.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Lofty, but that would be amazing.
There are underwater mining operations, aren't there? I had a feeling maybe it's maybe what I know from maybe I've just heard it from Bill talking about it.
I've never heard of that, but
no?
I'd love for you to tell more.
I actually want to go and take a mining rig and put it on top of some ice and make mining water. And I'm just going to burrow a hole, pick it up, and move it over, and I'll just keep bottling the water. So we'll have the mining operation, but then also the bottled water operation. It's going to be perfect.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it is a huge topic of conversation amongst the people in the blockchain world, just the energy usage of Bitcoin and, how it's so, not energy efficient and using up all of these resources. So, yeah, it's definitely something that's top of mind. And that's sort of the whole reason for moving from the different protocols. So you've got the proof of work protocol. Right. And then now with EOS, it's the proof of stake protocol, which doesn't use quite as much energy intensive resources. But I think that, probably Bill's, leading part of that conversation as well.
Yeah. Maybe this is just my, couch theory, but I'm a big fan of Nassim Taleb. I don't know if you guys have read him before, but
no.
So he's an interesting character. Brilliant guy, though. This book, his most famous book is The Black Swan, right? And he talks about how he was some kind of trader in New York, wore a suit every day. And he was warning people that the way that we were leading our lives was volatile, in the banking sector. And so he wrote this book about uncertainty and how it's impossible to predict basically anything. And we try and we always fail. And that's my theory on what's going to happen with blockchain. And I think podcasts in a way as well. But something needs to break a little bit. Something, maybe not a crisis, but there needs to be some kind of requirement for the blockchain to be integrated. So let's say Uber comes up with, so Andreas Antonopoulos, another book, The Internet of Money. Brilliant. That was probably what turned me on to the cryptocurrency universe. But he talks about this concept of self-driving cars that fund themselves through cryptocurrency. So like when they need gas or repair or something, they just drive themselves to the gas station and pick it up and then go back out.
Right. And they're making money from their rides?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So if that happened, if Toyota did that, cryptocurrency would be everywhere.
Yeah.
Blockchain would be everywhere.
Right. Well, it's going to be there in not that long. There's some major deals that are happening with the likes of Starbucks and I guess this new exchange called Backed. I can't recall the name of it, but yeah, a lot of that stuff, it's coming to the mainstream. It won't be long before we will be, able to pay for everyday items in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So, yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, all the things that are coming out. Let's go back to podcasting a little bit. So if you guys are going to search all of the podcasts out there, going back however far and everything else as well, because there's tens of thousands of episodes that have already happened, and there will be 10,000 more. How do you rank? So we just recently had Jeff Pearlman on my podcast, Break It Down show, and he wrote a book called Football for a Buck. And so he did everybody. He did, Morning Joe, Fox News. He did all of it. He did a press junk all over the place, and he did all of the podcasts. How does your AI sort out like what's important? Like people really probably just want to hear Joe Rogan, talk to him, but maybe my show takes him in a different direction and there's something interesting there. How do you deal with the fact that someone's on 50 different shows and then try to rank that?
So I think there's two answers to that. For one, the person the platform would learn about that person, so I like Break It Down show.
Yeah.
So they know that. And if I search for Jeff Pearlman,
yep.
If I search for Jeff Pearlman and I also like the Break It Down show, that would be the first one that comes up, right? And the second one was one that Sandra and I were talking about a little before, is this concept that we're developing. Channels is what we're calling it for now. Essentially, Jeff Pearlman would have his own channel of all the shows that he's been featured on and all the shows that he is creating.
Okay.
So if someone types in Jeff Pearlman, it would just return every single show that he has spoken on, and you can see, Joe Rogan, David Koppelman, anything that's notable.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. So then so he has his own podcast, and then that means he's on 150 of his own shows as well. Again, like you're trying to rank all that stuff out. Does it get crowded for the user who's like, I want to have 15 core podcasts, and everybody has a podcast. So how do you like, how do you deal with that? Because it's like going to BJ's and going to eat food, and you're like, oh goddamn, there's 11 pages of food in here. You start out in salads where you're supposed to, and you're like, but then they got pizza, ribs, and it can be a lot. And so then you just go home to whatever the normal thing is, meatloaf and mashed potatoes or whatever it is. So how do you help that listener discover things? Like when I listen to YouTube, it just keeps pumping the same things, and I'm like, I don't want that. I want something else, and now I have to think of what I want, in that moment. And so I'm hoping that we're going to get better at that. Maybe is what I'm asking.
I think AI is going to be very important for things like that. It'll learn about you, but it'll also learn about people in general. And as these programs get smarter, they'll be able to extract and kind of compose like an optimal listening for you. It'll learn about Pete Turner, and people that are similar to him have listened to 3 podcasts that are in sports and 2 that are in something else.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be an overload. But this decision fatigue is real. I mean, everyone knows, like, opening up Netflix and scrolling around forever.
Yeah. Well, I can also help. I can answer that actually, because I've been doing work with this AI company, and there's this concept in AI called explore and exploit. And it's about discovery and showing the person results that are similar to what they're already looking at. But then every now and then you have to throw in something different that may appeal to their interests. And then the machine continues to learn. And that's like maybe 1 or 3% of every one of the results is this bizarro, like out of left field. But when you see that, you could say, oh, I've always wanted to learn about that topic. Definitely a concept in AI, and something that maybe you'll start to leverage in your platform as well.
It seems like there needs to be like a more, my ability to teach instead of paying attention. Like, I don't want every single show about Hitler ever because I watched one World War II movie on Netflix, right? Like, just go away, and being able to kind of right swipe, left swipe things, but then not be penalized heavily for things you pick or don't pick. Like, just today, I want a rom-com right now. Give me just a rom-com about Made in Britain, and it's just really hard to find those things. Even though I've got a zillion choices, it's like you said, you just scroll forever, and I'm like half an hour of scrolling it's like back in the old days of walking through a video store, 5,000 choices.
Overwhelmed with the choices. Yeah. How about this? I have a question, because we're here and we have a podcast expert. Give us some tips. What makes for a good podcast in your ears, and what can we do better, since you have listened to 1 or 2 of our shows in the past?
Well, I mean, first of all, don't be deterred to make a podcast. It's becoming so accessible, and there's truly an audience for everyone. That's what's so intriguing about this industry is, it's like conversational, it's intimate, it's connective. It brings people together, it brings communities together. So I think what people really need to do, it's not the actual show. Of course you need to have great content, you need to really believe in what you're talking about, but you just need to be able to reach people. Reach the right people. And that's what a platform that learns will be able to do, right? It's a necessity so that we're not going through this decision fatigue like Pete's talking about.
Right.
You don't want to scroll through all day. We're not made to scroll through these pieces of glass in our hand all day. We talk. So NLP is getting really good, right? You're able to talk to your phone and say what you want, and it'll come out.
NLP being natural language processing.
Yeah,
yes.
So I guess in that vein, it's just people get like stage fright, and I think you guys are really good in the fact that you just do your podcast, right? Like, you do it whenever you can. It doesn't have to be this like magical production, right? And yours comes out fantastic, right? So people just should try, and then you learn over time. And it's the same thing with building a business. There's Ed Catmull. He Creativity Inc. He wrote, not founder. He's one of the guys who's with Steve Jobs at Pixar. I love Pixar. I've watched Pixar movies. He made this comment about how being able to accept mistakes and just do it over again, and take those mistakes and try it and do it again, and then wait for mistakes is how you create how you create an open and accepting culture in a company.
Yeah, or even just the enemy of good enough is perfection. So striving for perfection when you really should just get it out. And yeah, even with my stumbling and uhs and ahs, which I beg Pete to remove for me, that he doesn't always do. But yeah, it's just make it good enough, and and continue to improve.
Your show's perfect.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So, okay, here's the big question that we all have to answer in the podcast world, because the fun ones like what's the name of the show going to be really don't matter at all. That stuff is so inconsequential. Can you put out a reliable product so the audience can get to know you and become familiar? That's for sure. But the hardest part is getting across that chasm from we have a podcast to we have an audience that has value enough that we can trade our podcast to someone for money. That's the hardest thing. Most podcasts don't get past 13 episodes. They start, they fail. It's hard. This is hard. It's not easy. I mean, I was editing on Bart on the way over here because that's what you have to do. It's work. So how do we help folks get across that chasm from we have 8 people that listen to them, and one of them's my mom, to Tim Ferriss has hundreds of thousands of people. And even if you don't go to the 1%er shows and you just go to the shows that have a very good audience that has value, how do you get to that point or start to get there? What do you think? What are your thoughts? You've read a lot of stuff on this. You're in this business. How do we help these guys out?
Well, I think there's definitely a misconception. People really believe that they need to be the Tim Ferrisses of the world. To be successful, you have to have 100 million followers. But so one of Tim Ferriss, he's on there a lot, Kevin Kelly. I read a couple of his books, and he's a fascinating guy. And he wrote this article back in the early 2000s about having 1,000 true fans. And people who listen to any of these shows in the Ferriss vein will know exactly what I'm talking about. But basically what they say is that you only need 1,000 people to create a community, right? You have this group of people, you comment on their posts, you make them feel heard. They'll do the networking for you. This guy is doing a great job, and you'll enjoy it. So they send the podcast to a friend, right? And it works in any domain. It's writing, it's movies, it's everything. Networking is everything.
Yeah, and I think that this is actually a form of networking in and of itself, because we've been able to, build some great relationships, make friendships with some really amazing people by doing this podcast. And I think that's one of the sort of the outer benefits that you don't really think about, but that is, part of creating this community and, getting people's voices heard.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting too. If have the extroverted bone in your body, I'm a little of both, I teeter on each side, but meeting new people is just so amazing. And that's what podcasting, interviewing does. So this weekend I'm interviewing 20 different investors and founders at the Igniter conference for Podsource, right? And I'm really excited about it because you just get to meet all these people that have amazing stories.
It's true.
And I mean, in the same vein, the people that are listening get to hear these stories.
Right. Yeah. I always felt that. And part of my motivating factor and my why for doing this is just having been in Silicon Valley for so many years and made such great connections in my network and meeting so many amazing people and having those conversations on a day-to-day basis, that I find so fascinating and just seems like other people would as well. And here we are. Yeah.
What's your why, Pete?
I'm a storyteller, so I'm sort of built out of these things. And The interactions are absolutely my stock and trade. It makes me a more well-rounded person. It gives me more joy. When I see people that don't focus on joy and enrichment of themselves, like when everybody's worried about everybody else's grass, look how green that got. Seed your own grass. And that's what I'm doing. I'm seeding my own grass. I'm trying to build my own little happy place and share what I've got with others. And so and I beg people all the time to grab the recorder, grab the paintbrush, grab the pen, whatever it is, go run 100 miles. Whatever that thing is that you want to do, go do it. Keep doing it until you don't want to do it anymore, then find something else. The pursuit of happiness, that's the key, like chasing it. If you catch it, wonderful. But you have the right to choose, or the right to pursue, and that's huge. So that's why I do it. I'm pursuing it.
It's admirable, too. I would be remiss not to mention, so basically what you're talking about has been termed as FOMO, right? So a friend of mine, his name is Patrick McGinnis, and he actually coined FOMO like 10 years ago.
Really?
And now his podcast is called FOMO Sapiens. Everyone should listen to it. It's good.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
He gets some interesting guests, and he's written a couple books and whatnot. But it's like the glass is always cleaner on the other side, right? It's definitely the Instagram and social media is making us not want to seed our own grass.
It's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of that, and the podcast world. We have so much found time now. I'm doing dishes. I can put on whatever I want. I can learn about something. I can simply be entertained. I can pick someone whose work who fascinates me and just type in the word interview afterwards. And with your, with what you guys do, I'll be able to find even more of that thing, and that would be awesome. I need 15 minutes of this author talking about their stuff. I can find it way easier. I mean, that's such a big thing.
Yep, definitely. So what's next for Podsource? What do we have to look forward to?
Well, so there's the internet platform that works well. We've gotten a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 or so actually, people that are on the platform, but we haven't done a big marketing push yet because the mobile app, we've been treading lightly there, and that's because what can you do to distinguish yourself from the others? And right now, we don't have the money to do so, and it's an unfortunate fact. Wish things could just be made more efficiently, and we're working as best we can, but we're gonna keep iterating, and we have lots of ideas. My Evernote is ridiculous. You don't want to see. So once we get the initial funding, you don't really need that much money to build something great, and we were able to do what we've done so far with like $50,000, and it's been self-funded, and we're thinking that we can stay in a fairly reasonable vein for the next at least half a year.
Awesome.
Podcasting is a very intriguing space, and voice is an intriguing space, and it touches everything because it's just kind of innately what we're wired to do. We're social creatures, and hearing stories, telling stories, and connecting with other people is what we're here for.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're going to have a question. You're looking at 500 plus podcasts here across the table from you. What do you want to ask us?
What would improve your podcast for a listener on a day-to-day basis?
I think it's the post-production process and getting the transcripts, getting the notes, which you already do. I think that also what I like, because our process is to put out the podcast, Pete does all the editing. I'm usually the one that's writing the blogs, but I also like to know what are some notable quotes that I think it's really wow, when Brian said that, I love that resonated, right? And sometimes hearing, and when we hear it back in audio, those things come out to me, but I'm not necessarily in a space where I can record them. So, and I think that those are just anything that's leverageable snippets that we can continue to use to promote those episodes. And that's something that we need to do a better job of also, but going back and re-listening to episodes and finding those quotes, maybe doing some cool social media graphics with them so that we're better at promoting ourselves.
She is the ultimate marketer, and she's so good at it, because I think in a totally different thing. I want those 1,000 people. and I want to know where to find them. I don't need you guys to do all the lifting, but if you notice that people from Sri Lanka are listening, and there are certain ways that we could tailor how she writes the blog or whatever, or just able to go, we should target an ad here because we're working here for some reason, because you don't know where the audience is. Like, but Break It Down Show's got a huge audience in Japan for some crazy reason. I have no idea why, So I would love to foster that more. I would love to know more about those people, and learn more who our audience is, because we can guess, but it's hard to know. So being able to determine what that audience member looks like, because our preconceived notion is decent, but it can be a whole lot better if we had more data about what that person looked like.
Yeah, or even an ability to create conversation with our audience and fostering that, because I think people are usually shy to leave a comment or whatever, but if there's ways to kind of instill those responses or those questions back to us so that we become more engaged with our audiences, I think that'd be cool too.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Pete, it sounds like what you're talking about is better analytics for engagement. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, for engagement purposes. Don't just tell me who's listening, but help me understand how to gather more of them.
Yeah, I would say the Podsource studio.
Yeah, nice.
All right. Cool. We're going to have to check that out. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much. It's been such a great conversation. I'm so happy we finally got you on here, and we are going to continue to watch your progress, and we're big fans and help you any way we can.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.